Youth voices matter. We are KIC Radio.
Hello and welcome back to episode 20 now of the South Bank podcast. A new milestone for the podcast. I'm once again joined by Cameron Gorman. Cameron,
Hello.
A few weeks away from the podcast, obviously had the international break and a bit of a busy few weeks behind the scenes at the South Bank podcast. How have you been holding up?
I've been holding up great, Jacob. Just happy to have the international break out the way. No one likes seeing the international games. Don't really pay much attention to them myself these days. And we're back to now the best team in the world, who are once again picking up 3 points. So excited to get into it today.
Yeah, so a bit of a different tune coming off what was a disappointing first, let's say, 16, 17 episodes of the South Bank podcast, probably where we were slightly less enthusiastic about Wolverhampton Wanderers. But as the weather gets better, so do Wolverhampton Wanderers, it seems. So life has suddenly started becoming better, and that was epitomised by last night. I thought a very strong performance by Wolves. Let's not beat around the point. Obviously, great to get 3 points, but just for nature we did it in was fantastic. Do you not agree, Cameron?
Yeah, I have to completely agree, really. I think the manner in which Wolves went about getting the 3 points was extremely satisfying. Obviously, to start the game off, that first half was just incredible. Wolves started with intensity, brilliant pressing, I thought, from Strand Larsen, Manetzi and Bellegarde, all working so hard in that front three. But yeah, chances for both teams in this one. It was quite end-to-end, and I think it made for an entertaining game.
Yeah, I feel it did, and it's quite interesting because even though it was end-to-end, I think it was clear who the better team were. I think that we were much more better in possession. I've even seen West Ham fans say that we could have won 3 or 4-0 yesterday, Wolverhampton Wanderers, but at the same token, we could have also lost 2-1. Well, that's the beauty of football, isn't it? But obviously, first time we've beat West Ham since January 2023 under Lopetegui, who was obviously had a stint at West Ham since departing from Wolves. But we'll get on to the game. Game starts. Good intensity from Wolves, pressing as a team, as you just mentioned, and defending as a team as well, which is good to see. But it was West Ham who had the first real chance of the game. Totti Gomez's clearance is unlucky to deflect off Jared Bowen, I'd probably say, who plays it across goal to Evan Ferguson, who, if he hits it cleanly, it's probably 1-0 to West Ham. But let's not take away from Matt Doherty's defensive work here. Again, fantastic from the boy. What are you thinking at this point, Cameron? Is it, here we go again?
Yeah, pretty much that. Those words exactly. I was expecting Evan Ferguson to find the net. We all know how hot a product he was a couple of years ago when he was firing them in for Brighton. Got on loan in January this year because he can't hit the same heights he has been. It's giving shades of Aaron Connolly to me. Regardless of that, Evan Ferguson has to score inside the 6-yard box. Brilliant work from Bowen, who often terrorises our defence. I think we've all become very accustomed to fearing the England winger as Wolves fans. He definitely had a few things to say in the reverse fixture. However, yeah, I do think Totti was quite unlucky. And as for our first chance, Totti was involved at the other end as well. I think he's a very crucial figure in the game yesterday. Sometimes he scared me with some things he did. And other times, I was impressed by his composure. Bit of a two-faced performance from Totti, I thought, at times. But we'll get more onto that later. I do think Evan Ferguson had to score, but like you said, Matt Doherty, wow, so consistent from the Irishman. He's really found his place as a centre-half, which is unbelievable to say after the amount of times we've seen him turn out for Wolves at the full-back and wing-back positions. But yeah, just great to stop that going in from Dot.
Yeah, and Wolves only got better from there, really. As you mentioned, the Totti Gomez chance, getting on the end of a good delivery from Ryan Aït-Nouri on the free kick. Forcing a half-decent save out of Areola, but one you probably expect him to make. But then it was just after that Wolves continued the pressure, and a fantastic ball from Agbadou finds Manetzi, who does well, to Strand Larsen on the edge of the box, who is obviously a player whose confidence has crept up in the last few weeks because he takes this shot on And it takes a deflection off Kilman, granted, but he still hits it very well, and it puts Wolves a goal ahead, and probably well deserved considering the pressure we'd applied. But what a goal to open up the game. Like I say at the time, Agbadou's pass forward, that's something Wolves have missed for so long. So just to break the lines like that, I think Manetzi does well battling, and then Strand Larson with the great hit as well. Brilliant team goal to open proceedings.
Yeah, like you said, Jacob, I just think that really shows the confidence the Norwegians come into. I wouldn't have imagined him even trying a shot like that in recent weeks before this. It seemed like the guy couldn't hold up a ball for half the season, yet yesterday he was fighting for every ball, really put in contest using his strength, and just fighting for every 50-50 really. But the shot itself on his weaker foot as well, that is not the type of finish we're accustomed to seeing from him. Almost similar to his second goal against Southampton the other week. However, with his other foot, and thank you, Max Kilman, 40 million down the drain. Thanks for the deflection. However, I don't think that was really going to stop it. It was just great finish, really, and Arioli probably wouldn't have got anywhere near it. I don't think it was any less than Wolves deserved, though, and that's the bottom line.
Yeah, I think obviously 10 goals now for Jorgen Strand Larsen, which is a good return considering he's left a lot of fans frustrated, including ourselves at times this season. But I think just his all-round performance yesterday, like you mentioned, Cameron, far better, actually holding up the ball. He actually jumped at some point as well and actually ran after the ball as well, which was quite amazing to see. But yeah, fantastic to see the Norwegian. Obviously, a deflection off the England futsal captain for the goal. If you didn't know, he did play futsal for England. He also only cost 1 million from Maidenhead when he came to Wolves. But we carried on after this goal, and as comes a custom with Wolves now, going, please don't sit back after this goal, and we didn't. Jornik the Bellegarde still working hard to try and break the lines. Marshall Manetzi still being that presence going forward, as well as we've got to speak about that midfield pair of Andre and Gomez. Wow. Oh my God. I mean, shortly after the goal, Wolves nearly scored what would have been a Puskas-worthy goal almost, with João Gomez picking the ball up on, well, you watch the highlights, basically the halfway line, taking on 2 or 3 men with some great feet. Strand Larsen holds the ball up to Manetzi, who hits it almost too well. Life off the crossbar. And this was just one of the many chances in the first half, wasn't it, Cameron? But Wolves had to maybe go 2 or 3 in front before half time.
Yeah, honestly, I think West Ham can count themselves lucky to have been in the game come half time. As we'll get to later, Graham Potter had to really tear up the script at half time because we were utterly dominating them, for those who didn't watch. And it was just great to see because Wolves, Vitor Pereira has spoke about in his press conferences how he wants his team to dominate, how he wants them to be relentlessly pressing, how he wants this energy from Wolves. And you're really seeing him get through to the team at the moment, not only with these results, but also on the pitch. Every game, it feels like we're getting closer and closer to the style of play that Vitor Pereira has envisioned for this squad. And yeah, just brilliant. I really thought all the team were doing really well to keep breaking through the lines. Agbadou, like you mentioned, for the last goal. And then, like you said, Bellegarde doing it frequently. I think it's just great that the players are now filled with the confidence to try and do this, whereas at the start of the season under Gary O'Neill, they seemed scared to make a 2-yard pass, whereas now they're fizzing it in from other ends of the pitch, and it's just creating so many more problems for the opposition, being able to switch the ball around so quickly. Yeah, I think Manetzi was really unlucky to not score here. Like you said, he probably hits it too cleanly. It's going towards the top corner. So much power. Ariola's getting nowhere near it. But maybe if he just tapped it in, it probably would have gone in. But like you said, just ridiculous from João Gomez. That man seems to be getting better and better every minute, forget every game. I'm so glad that we've tied him down to that contract extension, and I think that's the best bit of business Wolves could have done, other than an Andre contract extension. But that midfield duo is just ridiculous. If you'd have told me when we lost Neves and Moutinho, we'd go from having Portugal's starting midfield to the Brazil's midfield, I would have still laughed at you. And I think that just shows how ridiculous the Premier League is as a whole.
Yeah, and maybe, I mean, you have still word right out of my mouth in regards to the contract, but it does speak levels to the level of the Premier League, but also maybe to the drop off of Brazil that we've seen lately. May not even be getting to the next World Cup, it seems, at the minute.
Try not to mention that one.
Turbulent times to be Brazilian. But as you mentioned, that contract being given to João Gomes, what a piece of business, because my favourite Wolves player personally, not because of his ability, although he's fantastic, but he's a perfect blend of ability and a player who just gives it his all. You can't help but love that footballer, going down 3 times yesterday, and he was clearly hurt, but still persisting to come on and still being the best player on the pitch, showing his quality. That really takes something. That takes someone who's here to fight for the badge that maybe under Gary O'Neill you probably wouldn't have seen. Maybe João would have came off 3 or 4 months ago under Gary O'Neill, which sounds ridiculous to say, but it does really seem like there's a mentality shift under Vitor. And I recall saying to my dad on the car on the way home, it's frustrating that Fosun delayed the inevitable sacking Gary O'Neill for so long. Because if we had Vitor in maybe a month prior, we could be speaking about 15th, 14th position at the moment and well adrift from what we now seem to be safe from relegation, but well adrift from it if we'd had Vitor in before. But as you mentioned, a terrible script at half-time by Graham Potter, moving to a back 4, bringing Alvarez on, who was obviously coming on to try and play in between the press of Wolves, try and stop Marshall Manetzi having that bit of a pocket, having that bit of freedom to try to release Jorgen Strand Larsen. We also saw Carlos Soler come on. We know his quality going forward, as well as Fulkrug, who, even though it hasn't worked at West Ham, a big body to have in that midfield, up front, as we almost paid the price for. And it was better from West Ham in the second half, to be honest. A lot more of the ball. Tried to make it a bit more of a scrappy game because they simply couldn't match us in terms of actually playing football. I would call Ward-Prowse a very frustrated character at one point, starting on Nelson Semedo, but it did almost work with a poor referee, didn't it? And the game got a bit feisty that second half, and we started to get a bit nervous, didn't we?
Yeah, I was getting nervous. I was expecting a red card in that second half, the way things started off. You can definitely see some of the tempers from the reverse fixture boiling over into this one. Regardless of the managerial changes on both sides since. I thought the changes were very good for West Ham. Soler, Alvarez and Fulkrug all on, just completely tore up the script, like you said. Really changed for the game for West Ham because it needed to for them to have any chance of getting back into this. They were awful in that first half. And they really dominated possession across the whole second half from thereafter. However, they didn't really have any real opportunities until about the 78th minute when Fulkrug's header hit the crossbar. So I'm not really sure if that says more about how much we locked them down from creating opportunities, despite them having all the ball, or if that shows that, well, I think that's what it does show, to be honest. But I was very impressed by the Wolves' performance again. West Ham looked very threatening, and Wolves with minimal changes themselves. I was half expecting Vitor to throw a few more substitutions on, despite the lack of quality on the bench yesterday. However, he did very well to just manage the game out, and I thought Wolves did very well over the whole game, slowing it down and stopping West Ham from making it a rough game, like you mentioned. I thought they really did well to try and make it a feisty affair. So many bookings for us, and I'm appalled at the fact there weren't more West Ham players booked. Yeah. Lucas Paqueta was lucky to not get sent off for the amount of yellows he should have had, yet didn't even find himself with a single booking. But like you mentioned, yeah, I just think good game management all round from Wolves and Vitor Pereira.
Yeah, and you mentioned the referee not booking Paqueta. I think perhaps Paqueta would probably be the most annoyed about that, as the way he was going about it seemed like he may have had a sneaky bet on himself to get bookings in that game, allegedly. But yeah, it spoke volumes to the fact that West Ham went to a back 4 to try and push more men forward, but it was still Wolves until that 78th minute, who had the best opportunity of the half. Matt Doherty making a great run forward as he was doing all game and cutting it back to Jorgen Strand Larsen in a position where I don't want to be too critical of him when it was one of his better games, but he's got to be hitting the target.
Yeah.
If West Ham had have equalised, we'd have really looked back at this as a chance of, hold on, this should have gone in. And bizarrely, this chance was left out of the Sky Sports highlights, which I thought was quite bizarre because it was a massive chance to put us 2-0 up. But obviously, then it became a factor. They brought Thomas Soucek on, and we thought, here we go, as well as Emerson. And their game plan was easy enough for anyone to see. Whip balls into Fulkrug and Soucek, and it almost immediately worked with Fulkrug's header rifling off the crossbar so loud to an Emerson follow-up, but he does really poorly with. Thankfully, Fulkrug was offside anyway, but at this point, what were your thoughts? Is it, oh no, this is going to be a long, long 15 minutes, especially when you're seeing Santi Bueno come on. It seems like Wolves are about to shut up shop.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was expecting. I was expecting us to try keep possession, play the ball around, not make any real attacks ourselves. However, that proved not to be the case, thankfully. It just seemed like he was resting Ryan Aït-Nouri, who had took a few knocks in that game and is just coming back from international duty also. Yeah, Soucek and Fulkrug, just two big target men to have in that box. Soucek is actually West Ham's highest scorer across like the past 3 seasons. I think it was one of my friends who's a West Ham fan was saying to us. And I'm actually not surprised by that. It feels like he scores every goal for them when I'm watching them on Match of the Day. No helicopter celebrations this week, though. The potato salad merchant couldn't fire home. He did miss a big chance himself, firing wide, and Jose Sarr was sprawling out to beat him, but didn't even need to in the end. I was very shocked at that in the 89th minute. But like you said, West Ham just had a game plan, and still, luckily for Wolves, we managed to keep them at bay. And I think that just spoke to the collective spirit that's in our dressing room at the minute. They were fighting for every loose ball, every third ball, every second ball, every fourth ball, even on some occasions. And everything was just getting headed up or cleared out. And it was good to see. There wasn't any stupid decisions by anyone trying to play out at the wrong times. And even at times where I was scared to see us start playing out from the back in really tight positions where we're getting closed down, we still kept our composure. And the link-up play was so intricate, and we were able to play out of that press into sprawling counter-attacks, one of which we should have converted at the very end, I feel, with Manetzi firing wide. However, yeah, just a very spirited performance from Wolves, I thought.
Yeah, I thought it was only really one time, and it was going in that 89th minute where we struggled to play out from the back. Obviously, Totti Gomez once again getting caught up in his feet. And then it falls to Soucek, who should really be doing better. It's a terrible miss.
Has to score that.
A really, really poor miss. They wouldn't have deserved to get a point out of the game, I don't think.
No.
But they really should have there. But as you said, Cameron, Wolves continue to try and press. Marshall Manetzi with a chance at the end, which comes from some really good work from Pablo Sarabia, actually, winning the ball back. Sarabia, who's been a bit rejuvenated under Vitor Pereira, it seems. The most work rate we've probably seen off him since he's come to the club, whether he's playing for a move, which is most likely the case. But I do not mind, because he released Jürgen Strand-Larsen, who actually does very well to find Marshall Manetzi, who has got to be the most unlucky footballer of all time at this point. He should be on about 6 or 7 goals. He doesn't even do anything wrong in this instance. He beats the keeper. Jürgen Strand-Larsen, maybe a bit too unselfish, could have maybe followed it in and tapped it home himself.
I did think that.
But
those
inches past the post, and that would have wrapped up the game. And it was unfortunate by Wolves. Another great attack, another great piece of football in a game there was plenty of opportunities to pick out like that, where Wolves were fantastic. Like you say, winning every second, third, fourth ball, like an actual team that we've missed for so long. A team that wanted to play, wanted to fight. And that buzzed off everyone. Obviously, we see Vitor Pereira's backroom staff absolutely giving it beans to the whole of Molyneux at the end of that, the end of added time. That everyone loved, and that's what we love to see. We haven't seen passion like that. We haven't seen a connection like that. And I said to you last night, that's proper Wolves. That felt like a Nuno game where everyone's on side, everyone's there cheering on the team. There seemed to be that connect back that has seemed more distant than ever this season at Wolverhampton Wanderers. Although, of course, people don't like that, and Vitor Pereira and his backroom staff were given a yellow card and now suspended for the
For the
Ipswich game,
Ipswich game.
simply for jeering at their own fans, which I think is a bit ridiculous, personally.
Yeah, like you said, I think yesterday really had that secret ingredient that Wolves have been lacking for a long time now. We really, as fans, I think we've all felt that lack of connection to the staff, especially, as well as the players in recent times. And Vitor Pereira has really done well. Credit to him, because he's managed to revitalise our fan base, it feels like. Get some of these fair weather fans singing again, get them contributing to the atmosphere and filling out those seats at Molineux. And at the moment, it does feel like we could go into any game and come out with a win. I do think it's a bit ridiculous that Vitor Pereira and Luis Miguel got booked in the first place. However, it will be quite funny if we beat Ipswich without them. And we can see them in the box celebrating a goal in a prime Nuno at Bristol City type performance. But yeah, Minetzi, wow, going back to that point, just one of the unluckiest footballers ever. I don't know if it's unluckiness or someone's placed a curse on him to stop him hitting double figures for goals. Because honestly, it feels like he could already have double figures for Wolves, which is ridiculous as a holding midfielder having to play in a box-to-box role. But yeah, I really think Vitor Pereira and Luis Miguel epitomised what went well yesterday for me. And it was getting the Molineux atmosphere rowdy again. It was having that fight on the pitch, as we saw from how feisty the game got at times. And it was really about everyone giving their all for that badge on the shirt. While there's all this doubt about Cunha and the cameras kept panning to him on TV and people questioning on social media his commitment from his reactions to things during the game, I think it was almost two fingers to him with that performance, saying, we don't need you to get this, and we're safe without you regardless. Obviously, we are, without a doubt, a much better team when Matheus Cunha is on the pitch, but dare I say it, while he's been suspended, we've been a much better team.
Yeah, I think I was going to get onto the Cunha stuff after the game. We'll go more in depth then, because there's a lot to unpack. But yeah, I think yesterday especially, if not Southampton, really showed that you're not the team, you are a player in this team, and we're also a capable bunch of footballers without you. I said to you yesterday, I think it's weird that Jorgen Strand Larsen seems to be playing his better football without Matheus Cunha in there.
Yeah.
Players like Jean-Luc de Bellegarde have really stepped up. Players like Andre and Gomez have been at their usual standard, which is fantastic. Ryan Norris find his feet again, starting to look like the footballer we know he is. But yeah, moving on now. Who are your main standouts for the game? You could probably pick all 11 footballers, in fairness, to be fair. I thought it was a very good team performance yesterday.
Yeah, I have to agree. Everyone gave 100% on that pitch yesterday. But for me, João Gomez was the one. Going down 3 times, looking like he's injured. But that man always gets up and fights. Like you mentioned earlier in the podcast, João Gomez, I think he just has the perfect mentality you want for anyone in any profession. And in football, that mentality will get you so far. He really dedicates himself to his faith, himself, his health, and the team he plays for. Every team he plays for, the fans fall in love with him, and it's so easy to see why. That man never gives any less than 110% whenever he steps out on that pitch. And I'm so happy that he has signed a new contract. I just have to keep echoing that, because it doesn't feel real to still have him. I was really scared he'd be one of the possible departures this summer. And then this contract seemingly coming out of nowhere has really calmed me, and I'm sure lots of other Wolves fans down. Matt Doherty, I thought, was also very good. He covered well for Semedo at times, whilst also managing to push forward and create sometimes. And his choice of pass, Matt Doherty, where has this long passing come from? I'd expect to see him in holding midfield at some point next season if we get too many injuries there, with how flexible he seems to be. seems like he's becoming a James Milner sort of player with age. Yeah, I thought Manetzi did well to keep breaking the lines. Strand Larson, probably one of the best games we've seen from him in a Wolves shirt. Excellent hold-up play, flicking it up around defenders at times, which is just shocking to say, really. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Andre, Mr. Composure, he is just phenomenal as always. But like you said, I find myself listing off the whole team. I think it was just an all-round great game. I think the only man who didn't have much to do was Jose Sarr, who was not really threatened at all yesterday. Agbadou, once again, crucial for the goal, and just organising that back line so well, constantly barking orders.
Yeah, it's like you say, it's hard not to just list the whole team. Someone you didn't mention, probably our own Joshua Brooks. I think, again, fantastic yesterday, carrying the ball forward, finding pockets.
Jean-Ric Bellegarde.
Again, like you say, I mentioned it. You mentioned it to me. I mentioned it to my dad. The low centre of gravity, the way he shields the ball, fantastic. It's his best attribute, if anything. The way he can play at the half turn. I thought Agbadou, fantastic again. Probably made his first on the ball mistake yesterday, but still speaks levels to him that he recovered it after getting the ball trapped his own feet. Jose Sarr, like you say, probably the least busy man on the pitch, but still managed to use a heart attack a few times on the ball, which just speaks levels how crazy of a bloke that guy is. But yeah, we spoke about the Gomez contract extension. Obviously, Yerson Mosquera also signing a contract in the week. Bit of split ideas within the fan base. I personally quite like it. I like Mosquera. I think he's got room to grow next to someone like an Agbadou. I think he's a physical presence. And I think before he got injured, that Newcastle game especially, and Villa away, I thought he was one of our better players. I thought really started to grow into that role. I've always liked him anyway, but he is very raw. I think if you can get Mosquera, Totti, and Agbadou playing together, that's your long-term centre-back trio for me.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think Yerson Mosquera was definitely one of the bright sparks at the start of this season. I'm sure that Arsenal game will still live long in the memory for some with Mosquera's ambiguous decisions. But yeah, I think the Colombian has earned a new contract in the very little we've seen of him. And I think it will mean he really wants to repay the fans and the club and the trust shown in him to be given that contract whilst he's out with this long-term injury. Obviously, on the flip side, I see some discontent within the fan base, wondering why he's been given it whilst having a long-term injury. And I do echo those concerns to an extent, because you never want to see a player come back from injury, not be the same player, and then realise you've now got him signed till 2030, which could be a predicament if that's the case. However, I'm going to keep a positive view on this because we know the player Yerson is, and we know the player he was at Villarreal. To be playing for a team like that every week and getting above 7 out of 10s every game consistently in a tough league like the Liga, and then to come to the Premier League and do the same in the very few games we saw of him, I really think there's a place for him in that slot at the back. Joey's kind of keeping warm for him at the minute, because while we all love Doc and while he's been incredibly consistent this year, that isn't a role I see him in for good. Just purely because of his age, I feel he will continue to decline, unfortunately, while it might feel like he'll be at Wolves till he's 80. Yeah, I just think it's a great decision all round.
Yeah, I mean, penny for the thoughts of Napajiga in this scenario. I think probably watching on thinking, goodness me, am I ever going to get a game for this football club at this point?
Yeah.
But yeah, Mosquera is certainly a player with the right mentality. Obviously, we saw yesterday, absolutely loving it yesterday when Vitor's giving it to the crowd on his seat. And he needs to be careful because he doesn't want to give himself a longer-term injury, does he? So does probably want to get off his seat. But we have to talk about it. We can't be too positive. Mateus Cunha, what a week it's been for the bloke who isn't involved in the Wolves squad at the minute. Doing an interview with The Guardian, I believe it was. Where he was very complimentary of Wolves. Let's not get it wrong. Very complimentary of the fans, very complimentary of the home we've given him since coming to Wolves. The fans adoring him. But it was at the end where he mentioned that he wants to win trophies, he needs to do what's best for his career, all stuff along those lines, without inherently saying that he wants to leave Wolves, which led to a video of Mateus coming out where he essentially blamed us for misreading this article and saying that he didn't say that, but also not saying that he wants to stay at Wolves, not saying that he wants to win trophies at Wolves. Almost just a whole lot of nothing in this video. What's your thoughts on this man who inherently is probably the reason we're staying up, but just can't seem to help himself in the headlines lately?
While he's the reason for us staying up, I think if Mateus wants to win trophies, he shouldn't get himself sent off at the very end of a cup match where we would have then win on penalties if we had him taking one. Could have been in a FA Cup semi-final, Mateus, by now, if you'd not get it sent off. But every cloud has a silver lining, and Mateus Cunha, while suspended, we've not lost since. So what does that say about you? I love Mateus Cunha, like every Wolves fan. And like you said, he is probably the reason we are staying up, if not definitely, let's be so honest. But yeah, you can't be talking in the media about this when the likes of Fabrizio Romano and agents are drumming up interest, and every news outlet is reporting him seemingly as like Mr. Wolves, making us out to be a one-man team, which we've proven we're not recently. However, I just don't think you play into the noise. You've got to silence it out. You've got to focus on your football, really, to use that phrase. And I don't think it's the right decision to be having interviews while away on international break while you're still serving a suspension, and that he had 2 games left of at the time, saying how he thinks he needs to move for the sake of his career. Mateus, maybe focus on playing some matches for Wolves and not getting yourself sent off every few games. While he is a brilliant footballer, and I do agree with his comments to an extent, as Mateus knows, he is ridiculously talented and he could start for any club in the Premier League, I think. But yeah, I just think it's poor timing, poor taste, and it's not something he really needs to address when he's already got a new contract that's going to allow him to move on.
Yeah, that's what I find weird about it, is you don't need to do it. You signed a contract knowing that this is your key out the door in the summer, unless there's something in the contract we don't know about that Mateus isn't happy about. But he wouldn't have signed it if that was the case, because he still had 2 years left on his contract if he didn't sign this new contract regardless. But we did see Johnny Phillips report that George Mendes and his right-hand man were at Compton this week. So whether that was to discuss matters potentially with Mateus, I don't know. Whether is Mendes Mateus' agent, I don't know. But there seems to be something brewing there, whether it's outgoings or incomings. Who knows? I assume we'll find out in the next couple of months.
Well, according to reports, it was more related to incomings, and it was to discuss a transfer strategy for the upcoming window. And my only concern about this is we all know what can happen when Jorge Mendes is in charge of your transfer business. While there's been the gold clouds rising above Molineux and Europa League anthems playing out with some of his windows, there's equally been the Fabio Silvas and your Valencias, where clubs suddenly taking a sharp downhill turn. So I don't think it's all the light at the end of the tunnel just yet. One little stat to leave you with as well, Jacob. Wolves have won 13 points since the start of February in the Premier League, with only Liverpool and Arsenal winning more in that time.
Wow.
I think that really speaks as to how we've turned it around, especially with the fact we probably should have won that Liverpool game and shortened that gap ourselves, and that put us above. Yeah, that had put us above Arsenal's points total in that time as well.
Yeah, I mean, wow, it's been a magnificent turnaround. That's what brings me back to my earlier point of frustration that we didn't get rid of Gary O'Neill sooner, because could have really been in a much healthy position. But that's all we can do for the rest of the season now, is try and build a bit of momentum to take into the new season. Me personally, if
Completely agree.
the likes of Mateus Cunha isn't going to be here, if even Nelson Semedo are going to be here. Let's let other players have a chance who are going to be here next season. Let's see Pedro Lima. Let's see what he's got. Let's see Rodrigo Gomez in that wing back position, or let's see players going forward that we haven't seen that much of this season who are going to be here next season. Because inherently, like, I know we've got to play Ipswich on Saturday. I'm not dismissing them, but we're 12 points clear, and that means Ipswich need to win 4 games and draw 1 in 8 games remaining, and we need to go from being, like you say, the 3rd highest point earners since February to falling off a cliff for us to go down. Obviously, Wolverhampton Wanderers and could easily happen, but let's be realistic. It's probably not with a set of players we've got in the minute and the management in place. But what do you think for the rest of the season? Would you stay with the old guard and just try and get results, or would you let players like Pedro Lima, like Rodrigo Gomez, grow and flourish a bit before next season?
Yeah, I'm really torn about it. With Semedo especially, as club captain, I don't see why they would drop him. I think it looks wrong if the captain suddenly dropped just because he's not signing a new contract, and that kind of makes a problem in itself. Because if any other player is saying no, I'm not going to extend my contract, other than the captain, then he's probably not starting these games. Pedro Lima is also very young, and the fixture list is about to take a sharp turn before it eases up again, with Tottenham, United, and City all within our next 5, amongst the Ipswich game and a Leicester game, which should be the nice and easy ones, knowing Wolves will win the 3 harder ones and lose to Ipswich and Leicester.
Probably.
But yeah, I'm not too sure what the answer is here. Because while I think it's good to give these players opportunities, we also just want to make sure we are completely safe. While we know we are safe as fans, as professionals, they have to act like they're not until it's mathematically impossible to go down. And that's also what I would want to see from them, just to show professionalism instead of experimenting with new ideas at this stage. I do think it's good that players like Strand Larsen are coming out of their shells, and I really do agree that we can carry this momentum into the next season. Strand Larsen, by the way, is just the 3rd Wolves player to score 10 plus goals in his first Premier League campaign, after Jimenez, who is only 3 goals off his debut season.
Yeah, so
and that surprised me. And yeah, and then Stephen Fletcher as well, who he's already got more than now, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah,
you can't have more, can he? Because they're both on 10. So
yeah, they're both on 10. Well, he will have more by the end of the season.
We hope and pray. So yeah, but looking to the very near future, Ipswich on Saturday. At the time of recording, we're 12 points above them. They play Bournemouth away tonight, which a difficult fixture for them. You'd hope one where they don't get anything out of. A fixture that we've been looking at for months. This Ipswich away fixture, thinking, oh my God, this could be a proper 6-pointer. It's come around. It's not quite got the weight on it, but still a game we'd probably rather not lose, not give them that bit of leverage, that bit of hope. I think Ipswich know if they don't win this fixture that it's right on the wall for them. So for me, it's do not lose on Saturday. A draw's not the end of the world. Ipswich, whilst they do still do have some quality in their team, I do like the likes of Liam Delap, the likes of Amari Hutchinson, even players like Jack Clark, if they decide to turn up, can be dangerous. What are your thoughts ahead of Saturday's fixture against Ipswich?
Yeah, like you said, just do not lose. While I think a draw may kill a little bit of our momentum, a loss is not even catastrophic anymore, which is crazy to say given the expectations, like you mentioned, that we'd had in the months leading up to this fixture. However, I do think we're safe now. I'd expect us to get 3 points, if I'm honest, because the form we're in compared to hopefully the form they continue to have after tonight. I just think the writing's already on the wall for Ipswich, if I'm honest.
Yeah, so from a neutral's perspective, probably a terrible season to be watching the Premier League. A title race that is not a title race, and the relegation battle that seems to be over, but we don't care. We'd much rather start looking upwards. We're only 5 points behind West Ham now, so a win on Saturday, we could really be closing that gap, and maybe it won't be just 17th that we manage to finish. Maybe we can try and claw up 16th, 15th in the table. If I'm going to put a prediction on Saturday, I'll probably back a 2-1 Wolves win.
Something like that.
I don't know if it sounds like you agree. If you put a prediction on Saturday's result.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly the same, to be fair, but I'll try be a bit different. I'm just going to go 2-0 Wolves. We've doing really well to get clean sheets recently. We've won and kept a clean sheet in three of our last 7 home matches, which is as many as we had in our last 20 at Molineux before. And I think that just shows how defensively solid we've become under Vitor Pereira's tutorage. However, away, we've not been quite the same with the clean sheets. We did concede to Southampton. And while we still saw that game out, I could see that same thing happening at Ipswich, with them either getting a late goal or early goal. But I do trust us to turn it around at the minute and carry on this positive momentum that we've really been building. I'm going to say 3-1 Wolves. I'm going to go a bit crazy here.
We'd certainly take that. We certainly would. But yeah, I think that's all we really have to go over today. Quite a positive 20th episode of the South Bank podcast. Here's to 20 more. And here's to Wolverhampton Wanderers ending the season on a positive note and going into next season flying. Who knows what could be possible. Dreaming is for free, as a wise man once said. Cameron, anything else to add before we go?
All I'm going to add is goodbye. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to follow the South Bank podcast on all social medias. But also don't forget to renew your passports for next season, because I'm getting excited now.
Because we're going on a pre-season tour in Spain.
Exactly. Magaluf in pre-season.
Well, I would not be against it. But here, that I've been Jacob. This has been Cameron. We've been the South Bank podcast. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
The voice of a new generation. This is KIC Radio.